weekend we have what is considered the Olympics of grappling. It's the Abu Dhabi Combat Club World Championships. So it's effectively the biggest no-gi world championship there is. IBJJF also has a no-gi world title for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But their rule set's a little bit odd. They don't even allow heel hooks at some of the higher belts. So to most people, myself included, I feel like ADCC is really the gold standard for no-gi Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu championships. The tournament itself isn't necessarily a Jiu-Jitsu tournament. It's more of just a submission grappling tournament. They actually will discourage people with negative points for pulling guard. But even still, the guys who end up winning for the most part are Jiu-Jitsu guys. So it's sort of become by proxy just a Jiu-Jitsu tournament. So just looking at who is in each bracket and who I think has a good chance to win, we'll just go through entrance by bracket. It's worth noting that the actual brackets won't be put up until next Friday, until Friday. So while I'd like to go through the brackets and actually make predictions based off who wins what match and sort of go like, all right, well, this guy wins the quarter, this guy wins the quarter, then these guys face in the semis. Since we don't actually have the brackets and I can't do that, I'll just point out names that I think are guys who have a good chance to make it all the way to the finals and even win. So at 66 kilograms, the competitors are going to be Ruan Alvarenga, Thomas Halpin, Kenta Iwamoto, Nicky Ryan, Gio Martinez, Tonquinho Mendez, Shane Jamil Hill-Taylor, Paulo Miao, Gianni Grippo, Pablo Montavani, Keith Krikorian, Bruno Frazado, Mateus Gabriel, Kennedy Maciel, Richard Alacorn, and Ty Ruotolo. I don't know if there's anyone on this list that stands out as a clear favorite. I think the one person who you would figure has the best shot at this would probably be Paulo Miao. Sort of depends on how the brackets end up working out. But there are some other guys here who are black belt world champions who, at least in the gi, have done a lot of great stuff. It'll just be interesting to see how that transfers over to no-gi and a tournament where pulling guard is not something that works out in your favor, especially at the lower weights where a lot of these guys like to pull guard in IBJJF matches. So guys who would be interesting to watch like Mateus Gabriel, Kennedy Maciel's a former world champion at black belt, the son of Cabrinha. Nicky Ryan's a guy who a lot of people have their eyes on. I don't know if this is going to be the time when he really breaks out as the star that I think a lot of people expect him to be. I think he's probably a couple of years away from that, but he'll have a good chance here. Tonquinho Mendez, a former world champion. He'll definitely be pretty tough here. Shane Jamil Hill-Taylor, also a former black belt world champion. So a lot of guys here who are definitely going to be in it. I don't know if there's like I said before, I don't know if there's like one prohibitive favorite, but I think Paulo Miao would probably be the guy who I'd look at right now as the one who's likely to take this one home. At 77 kilograms, they have JT Torres, who was the champion back in 2017, winning over Lucas Lepri. Then they have Ross Nichols, John Satava, John Combs, Servio Tulio, Mateus Gamrot, Lachlan Giles, Wagner Hosha, Oliver Taza, Edwin Najmi, Renato Canuto, Lepri, who I just mentioned, Celso Vinicius, DJ Jackson, Dante Leon, and Gary Tonin. To me, Tonin's a bit of a wild card, just because he's one of those guys where if he was still competing actively in jiu-jitsu, you'd figure he'd probably be towards the top and he'd be a guy you might think of as a favorite. But he has shifted his focus over towards MMA now. Granted, his MMA style definitely ties into his jiu-jitsu, so it's not like he just stopped training jiu-jitsu once he transferred over to MMA. But you wonder how much jiu-jitsu he has been training relative to the rest of the field, and if that's going to be enough for him to make a jump here and go from a guy who's in contention to a guy who can actually win it. JT Torres, for good reason, is probably going to be the favorite here. He hasn't competed much since winning an ADCC, but one of the matches he did take was against a guy who's also a favorite here in Wagner Hocha, and he ended up beating Wagner. So I think JT, Wagner, Lucas Lepri, those are the guys you would imagine are going to be good podium contenders. It's going to depend on how the brackets break out, but Renato Canuto has done really well in Kasai, so you figure he might also have a good chance here to make some noise and even make it to the medal stand. So this is a pretty deep weight class. To me, Torres probably has to be the favorite just because of his performance in 2017 and because he just has a great style for this. He's a very good wrestler, very good top pressure. But even if he's off his back, he's definitely got a lot of sweeps from there and is very good at getting back up and finding ways to score points. So to me, JT Torres is going to be your favorite here, but depending on how the bracket turns out, he could have a rough road to the finals, and if that's the case, it wouldn't shock me if he gets knocked off and then someone else ends up taking it. At 88 kilograms, we have Adam Wardzinski, Alec Balding, Joshua Hanger, Gabriel Almeida, Ben Dyson, Keller Locke, Sodi, Mason Fowler, Craig Jones, Rustam Chisev, Mike Perez, Murilo Santana, Gabriel Argis, Mateus Diniz, John Blank, Vladimir Arujo, and Pedro Marino. With Murilo Santana being in here, that ended up having to force Dylan Danis up to 99. I'll talk about that in the next weight class, but that's just a little note to make. I think the favorites here are probably going to be Craig Jones, just based off of the star-making performance he had in 2017, including that win over Leandro Lowe, and then also Josh Hanger. You probably also have to throw Mateus Diniz into the mix there. Hinger has had some wins, at least in the IBJJF Nogi championships against Deniz. But he recently had a match with Mateus Deniz at Kasai, and Deniz ended up winning that. Now, granted, that was after Hinger went for a failed flying armbar. And after he failed on that flying armbar, he landed on his head, and Deniz was quick to swarm on him, take his back, and then choke him. So, as Hinger said, and I think even had Hinger not said it, I'd still believe that was the case. He said it was just one of those things where with Kasai, he felt like with it being a super fight, it was worth going for something like that. But if it was something like ADCC or the Worlds where winning matters most rather than entertaining, then at that point you probably don't take that risk. So I don't think if there is a rematch between Hinger and Deniz that Hinger's going to make that kind of a mistake again. And I'd probably figure that with it being so wrestling heavy, that probably favors Hinger, especially if Deniz tries to shoot and has to deal with Hinger's guillotine. Not as though Deniz can't defend a guillotine. Obviously, when you train with Marcelo Garcia, you see a lot of the best looking guillotines you're going to find. But even still, I think Hinger would probably have to be favored there. So you look at either Hinger or Craig Jones, and I mean, if that is the final, having to pick between Hinger and Jones is going to be tough. I'd probably lean towards Jones, but not with a great deal of confidence. At 99 kilograms, we have Pertu Teppanen, Tim Spriggs, Paulo Barona, Miraz Avdoyan, Gordon Ryan, who's going to be moving up from 88, Tex Johnson, Keenan Cornelius, who may or may not still be able to compete here. He's dealing with some pink eye right now, so it'll be interesting to see if that clears up in time. But also Ben Hodgkinson, Vinny Magalhaes, Patrick Gaudio, Lucas Hulk Barboza, Jackson Souza, Paul Ardilla, Dylan Dennis, Felipe Andrew, and Vinicius Trator Ferreira, who just defeated Keenan Cornelius to win. I believe it was at super heavyweight at the Nogi Pans a couple weeks ago. So, again, this is another really deep division. I think in terms of guys who have what it takes to get to the podium, depending on their draw, depending on how well they perform, I think Tim Spriggs is one of those guys where if he gets hot, he could potentially make a deep run here. Gordon Ryan, obviously being a former champion, can definitely make a run here. Tex Johnson, sort of hot and cold, didn't look wonderful at Nogi Pants, but he also was up a weight class compared to what he'll be facing here. I believe it was Max Jimenez who beat him in the finals at Nogi Pans. But he's dangerous. He has a win over Felipe Pena earlier this year by a heel hook. So if you can beat a guy like Felipe Pena, you were capable of beating pretty much anyone else in the world. Does that mean you're going to? Not necessarily, but it does mean that you have that upside. Keenan, if he is healthy, he could potentially cause some issues here. It's interesting that he's been training with Gordon Ryan. I'm not sure if he's trying to pull what he would consider like a Kainan with Gordon Ryan. So there was this little story he was talking about with Kainan Dwarch, where he was saying that all the way through training, he would show Kainan a game that he wasn't going to play in the match. And then once the match came around, then he went for his legs. So maybe with Gordon Ryan, he's been getting beaten up in training, but he's kind of giving Gordon false hope. And then if he ends up facing Gordon, then he plays a completely different game and catches him. I don't know if that's his plan, but it seems odd that he'd be training with the favorite in his division. Vinny Magalhaes holds a win over Gordon Ryan in ACB, so it'll be interesting to see if he faces Gordon, how he does there. But he's definitely a guy who can make it all the way to the top. Gaudio is going to be tough. Lucas Barboza, his cardio is probably the one knock against him, and these are long matches, but he's got an excellent top game, very good wrestling, so he's definitely got the game to make a deep run here as well. Dylan Dennis will probably be tough for whoever he faces, but I don't see him winning. And then Vinicius Ferreira, he had that win over Keenan Cornelius, but I see him being a guy who might get one or two wins here and there, but I don't know that I see him making it to the top of the podium. And then at 99 kilograms, we got Buchecha, Eldar Rafigev, Nick Rodriguez, Antonio Braga Neto, Mateus Jeskowek, Yuri Samois, Orlando Sanchez, Cyborg Abreu, Jared Dopp, Joel Gabriel Hosha, Kainan Dwarch, Victor Hugo, Muhammad Ali, John Hansen, Elliot Marshall, and Max Jimenez. Buchecha is obviously going to be a favorite up here. Nick Rodriguez is a guy who's very interesting because he just kind of burst onto the scenes at the ADCC trials, and it's sort of hard to tell like how high up he really belongs in terms of rankings. Winning trials is a big deal. He's beaten some other black belts since then, but this will be a real opportunity to see where he's at. I don't know that I see him as a favorite, but I'm curious to see how good he really is relative to the other top guys in his field. Yuri Samois is a former champion, so it'll be interesting to see how he does. Orlando Sanchez is a guy who always causes some issues for people, a really big guy, tough guy to take down, very good top pressure, very hard to choke or really put any sort of submission on. Jared Dopp will be tough. Joel Gabriel Hosha is another guy who seems to find himself in a lot of different big tournament finals. So he might be able to make a run here as well. Kainan Dwarch has just been really hot in the gi at least. So it'll be interesting to see how he does here. Muhammad Ali, former world champion in the gi. So really strong weight class here. I think Buchecha probably has to be your favorite, but again, like some of the other weight classes, there are so many guys who are towards the top that I just can't wait to see how the brackets break out and see how these guys do from there.